Welcome to the Coast to Coast podcast, brought to you by Play Picks and the Lines, coming to you from the West Coast. Josh Lander, joined by my guy Nate Weitzer on the East Coast, and we are back in action with an 8-game slate here on Thursday night after this little all-star break here. In this one, we're taking a look at the Hawks headed to Chicago, taking on the Bulls. Very good home team is Chicago. Pretty much a full strength, still without Caruso involved, but we'll take a look at some of the best bets and a few other player props in here for you. Nate does have his great article up on playpicks.com as well with some best bets and player props in there for you. And make sure to like and subscribe to that page and check out those other couple videos we have up for you today, including the Memphis Grizzlies taking on the Minnesota Timberwolves, and then that player props video that will look to stay very, very hot with you guys as we come back from this all-star break. And as always, if you do still need a FanDuel or DraftKings account, head to ftpicks.com or dkpicks.com and find those listings in your area, such as what we've got for tonight. Nate, let's get into it.
Yeah, 2 games jump out at you on this 7-game slate as we come back from the break with totals around 240. This Bulls-Hawks game actually opened at 235 and is rising, and the Grizzlies-Wolves game, the other game we break down, opened at 240 and is dropping a little bit. So it seems like the public agrees with what I write in the article. I like over in Chicago and under in Minnesota. But there's also angles in terms of who's going to win these games. So we will get into it right now. Bulls -3 over the Hawks, was -4 a minute ago. There are 6 other games on the slate. The Cavs -6 at the Pistons. The Celtics are -9 at the Nets. No Kyrie, no KD, no Goran Dragic yet. Kyrie might be able to play home games soon, the New York City mayor kind of hinted at. Not that that's his number one priority, but Grizzlies are -1.5 at Minnesota as we speak. The Suns -10 at the Thunder. Warriors -10 at the Blazers. And the Nuggets -4.5 at Kings. So the reason I like the over in Chicago and not in Atlanta and not in Minnesota, aside from the home road splits each team are throwing out, it's just a matter of personnel. There's no amount of adjustments or, strategy that's going to fix the fact that Chicago has no defensive guards. They're going to continue to hemorrhage points. And there's also no adjustments for DeMar DeRozan the way he's playing. He will hit mid-range shots all over anybody draped on him. He's on literally a historic tear. He became the first person ever to go 7 straight games over 35 points and over 50% from the field. And he's a jump shooter. That's a record set by Wilt, who never shot outside of 3 feet. So DDR, on fire, 38 points per game in his last 7. The Bulls have the number 1 offense in their last 12 as they continue to just recognize they have to outscore teams. Without their guards there. They're 28th in defensive rating during that time. And they've scored at least 120 in 10 of those 12 games, the exceptions coming against the Sixers and Thunder. Thunder, actually the second best defensive rating in that last 15 span here. So I would take the overs first and foremost before I think about who's going to win this game. I mean, Atlanta has been far worse on the road, but they have these pop-up games. I mean, they're the only team to basically beat the Suns in this calendar year. I think we could see another pop-up game. As they come out of the break here, they're only 1 game in the play-in tournament ahead of Washington at this point. They're 28-30. They're obviously going to be gunning for wins here. And I think there's a chance that they shock. I mean, when Trey catches fire. But I like overs here, and I like Chicago's team total at 120 because, as I mentioned, they're getting 120 very consistently right now. At home, they're even better. They're 23-8 straight up this year, and their offensive rating is the best in the East when they're at home. The Hawks, their defense, much, much worse on the road. That's mostly the reason for them struggling, but over in 6 of their last 8 going into the break, and their exceptions also against very, very stingy defensive teams in the Celtics and Mavericks. So they go 124 against Cleveland, another stingy defensive team. Then they drop 130 in Orlando going into the break. They're kind of shifting their focus as well because John Collins has been out. He's still out with a foot injury. And without him, their defensive rating rises 8 points per 100 possessions. So their points per game go up 7 points to 118 per game. And if Atlanta's getting 118, Chicago's probably going over 120. You could bet both teams overs here. It's just a matter of Chicago getting better juice right now on their over at 120 than Atlanta at 117. according to the DraftKings odds. But if you like both overs, you probably like the over in general at 238. So that's what we're talking all around here is overs.
Yeah, totally. And just to comment on that one Cleveland Atlanta game that we called correctly when that went over as well. That was a game that all the numbers pointed to the same sort of situation that we have here with Chicago in terms of, obviously Cleveland's a much better defensive team, but the numbers, point in that game pointed towards Cleveland on the road as a favorite going to go over. Same concept here, in terms of, the Bulls being at home, they go over more. The Hawks, while they don't necessarily go over, they go over more on the road, which is where we're playing, obviously. It could have gone over more. And those games that have gone over by a significant amount as well, because the Hawks don't play defense on the road, and they're still in the, about a top 10 offensive rating team in terms of on the road as well. But that defensive rating all the way down to about 24th or 25th when they get on the road as well. So it's all these things point to obviously some overs. Those John Collins numbers are insane to me. That their points per game rises. Obviously, with him, they're still probably better on offense, but they're just so much worse on defense and have to play at a slightly faster pace as they lose their super versatile big man that can play that small ball five or really be like a super versatile four when they have Clint Capella in at the same time as him. So what they need John Collins for is everything really, and running their entire offense. So I think this is a game where it's great that his numbers point that way, because I really want to take this over. I want to look at how bad the Hawks are on the road in terms of what they're stopping. They're giving up the fifth most free throw attempts per game at home, or excuse me, on the road, whereas at home they limit that to the tune of the third best opponent free throw attempts per game. So they're letting teams get by them on the road. They're not guarding the 3-point line as well. They still shoot pretty well, on the road. As I mentioned, still a top 10 offensive team, still actually in the top 10 in effective field goal percentage and true shooting percentage on the road. So the total I feel equally as good, to be honest, because these Hawks numbers on the road are so bad at this point. I mean, 6-12 against the spread as the away dog this season. There's also no Gorgie Dang tonight, I believe you mentioned as well. So that interior presence is going to be even worse. Might consider some Vooch stuff there for against the Hawks, despite Capella being in there as well. I mean, look, in their last 15 of their last 18 road games against a team with a winning record, the Hawks haven't covered a single. They've covered 3 of those in their last 18 when they're the road dog, right? So there's not much to go on here that makes you. Or I'm sorry, just the dog in general, rather. Not even on the road, just when they're playing against a team on the without running. So basically, at this point, for me, the only thing I do feel good about with the Hawks is Trae Young's a killer. His home road splits, he's a little bit better at home, but he's still 27.5 a game, shooting 36% from 3, getting about 8 free throw attempts a game on the road. So in his last 4 or 5 rather against the Bulls as well, right? Those incredible numbers, over 33 points, over 8.5 assists or so. But DeMar DeRozan's the same concept, even dating back to when he was playing, with the Spurs. In his last 4 against the Hawks, he's at about 28.5 points, 9 assists, and 5 boards. In his last 4 against the Atlanta as well. So there's a lot to like in terms of scoring, especially for both stars. I love the assist for DeMar as well, as he's been doing that. I think there's something to look at with him, which we'll probably talk about in player props as we continue to pump up DeMar DeRozan, as we love what he's doing this season. Feel like he needs that recognition. So I think the total is exploitable here, and then really the Bulls to pull this one off feels great. If you want to take that over and parlay it with them in their money line, I might just get some serious odds tonight and come back with some nice juice and take the line with the over as well, picking the Bulls to win that one. If you do that this season, at any rate, if you pick the Bulls and the over at home this season against the spread, you're up a solid 6 units or so. So I mean, I think we continue that trend tonight. Everything is ripe for that to continue in Chicago.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned Trae, and that's going to be the key for Atlanta, as they know that they're not stopping anybody. But the Bulls have, with those 2 guards out, have even fewer answers for Trae, who's averaging 33.5. Lights out splits. He's shooting 54% from 3 in his last 2 trips to Chicago, scoring 31.5 points per game despite playing under 30 minutes per game. The last 2 meetings between these teams, the Hawks were really shorthanded around Trae. It was basically just him and Capella. Cam Reddish had 1 blow-up game there, but these games still hit 248 points. So now with more firepower around Trae Young, not necessarily any better defensive players. And with DeRozan cooking the way he is, along with Vucevic and Levine a little bit healthier coming out of the break, nice showing from him in the All-Star game. So he's pretty healthy. You got to like points all around here, and there's plenty of player props to talk about. We're gonna hit DeRozan in the player props video for sure. I'll just mention real quick that Trae at 9.5 assists is pretty much even money, as is 28.5 points. And I think he'll be piling up both of those tonight. Wouldn't mind comboing them, but you get better odds if you just take either one separately.
Yeah, for sure. And comboing them doesn't feel like the worst idea, honestly, either, to your point. And, really, lastly, it's just also, like I believe you mentioned this already, but I mean, 9 of the last 12 for the Bulls going over. Not surprisingly, they haven't had Caruso or Ball in that time frame. So I think that's really what we're looking at. There's just so many factors coming into tonight that go over for sure in this one. And then really, I know what you're saying, because honestly, when we were in terms of the Hawks being able to win this game, it's not out of the realm of possibility at all. Even though it is on the road, I'm going to continue to play these road numbers, but I am going to also mention that, when we did our Eastern Conference futures title odds, I'm not saying the Hawks are going to pull off the same kind of run that they pulled off last season, but they did show that they're a second half team and that they got hot at the right time. And I think there's reason to think that they're going to do so again. At the very least, I'll just mention I would definitely take them to get more than 13 wins, as they have the 7th easiest schedule remaining. But at the same time, they're coming out against one of the 2 best teams in the Eastern Conference right now. So it's not like it's easy just off the bat. I don't know that this is one they're able to pull off quite yet. So that is all the time we have for you in this one. Make sure to like and subscribe to that page and check out those other couple videos we have up for you today, including that player props one we were mentioning. And until we see you next, happy betting.